What is going on, brothers and sisters? Eric Rosen here, your internal strength coach, here to show you how to overcome your greatest challenges so you can shine your brightest light. I'm offering coaching services as well as personal training. If any of these just happen to pique your interest, send me an email, ericrosencoaches@gmail.com. Still have openings available. I just picked up a new personal training client today, but still space available. So again, email ericrosencoaches@gmail.com. So I apologize for my absence the past few days, not to get too deep into it, but just between me and some family, it was like a car accident and a house fire, and don't worry, like everything's fine, everybody's fine, everything's getting taken care of, but obviously just, life events that kind of get in the way where the normal everyday schedule kind of really isn't flowing there. So but nonetheless, I'm back. So this is actually going to be another video about relationships. Okay, I actually channeled this the other day but didn't actually have time to do the video, so I'm going to bring it to you guys today. So just kind of starting off real open, vulnerable. Planet Venus right now is retrograde in Scorpio. So long story short, how this affects me is like, and really everybody, is it's digging up stuff that was going on at this time of the year back in 2010. So, fall, November 2010. So think back to maybe what was going on for you there and see if there was anything like that really impacted your life. For me, it was when I was getting into the process of basically going through the final stage of a breakup with my fiance, who was actually is my son's mother. So this was a time for me where basically I knew that the relationship was over, and I was carrying a lot of grief, a lot of despair, and even feeling a deep aspect of betrayal. So much so that I can still kind of see myself, driving like to and from work and just feeling that deep sense of like defeat and grief. I mean, I knew this relationship was over. I knew that I was never going to be like a biological family again, essentially, with my son and his mother all together. And just some really, really deep wounds that were being created there. So now that here we are, this stuff getting brought up 8 years later, all that stuff is coming back up for me right now. In fact, I may have mentioned it before, but I even feel a physical manifestation of the emotional pain that's still stuck in my body, that is basically around my shoulder blade area and kind of to the side, to the back of the ribs a little bit, but it's essentially right behind my heart on the left side of my back. And so what this indicates is betrayal, a stabbing in the back. So it's a real golden opportunity for me to do the purging, the emotional purging of that emotional trauma that I need to do in order to like move on from that. And I'm right there, and it's awesome that basically this stuff has been stuck with me for 8 years, and it's not like something that I've been holding on to. It's just something that's been stuck there. And even after doing like my first ever ayahuasca ceremony, coming up on a year, end of November this year, still that dark energy is still there. So it's an aspect of personal closure, and on an internal level too. This isn't about going and talking with her or anything like that, but it's actually more about just this. Even though it's not a conscious decision, it's more subconscious. It's a past attachment to a relationship that I do want to move on from. And so again, I'm like sharing this stuff with you guys because I think we all have that to some degree. Past traumas from relationships, stuff that we're trying to move on from. And a lot of times people think, man, if I just would have done this different, or I wish this would have worked out. And a lot of times people like kind of never really give themselves an opportunity to move on from it and find new love, and then they even create a belief that they never will find someone else that will be as good as that person. And that is that is not a reality that I want to live in. So pay attention, if you're someone who feels that. So, I had this aspect of thinking that, and I am feeling a calling to do another ayahuasca ceremony, to do another deep emotional purge on this. But, even though that will be highly effective, I've also seen some other stuff come up for me, just indicating that, hey, you don't necessarily have to go and like drop the atom bomb, on yourself to do it. Not that it's not effective, but there's other things that you can do. There's the journaling, visualizations, energy work, different types of therapy, writing the person a letter of like how you feel, and then like fucking burning it at the end. Or, obviously I've talked about tapping before, and how, just so you know how deep this wound runs too, is I've only tapped. I tapped once the other night, and I did it. It'd been a few weeks prior to that, and the reason I stopped was because I don't even remember what I started on, but somehow it moved on to the son's mom aspect, and it affected me so deeply that, I'll be honest, like I literally felt like my guides and my angels had just like almost like carrying me like out of like I just finished like surgery, kind of like when a person's like out of it, like they just had anesthesia or something. Like I literally felt like they're like, okay, come on, let's go lay down, and relax. Like it affected me that deeply, physically, mentally, emotionally. Like it was fucking crazy. And I remember feeling some nausea. And then the thing was that every time I tried to go and tap again on this subject, I would instantly get nauseous. And so I thought, that's interesting. So maybe I wasn't ready for it yet. Maybe it was that indication, like feeling nauseous means, vomiting, purging. It's exactly what happens in an ayahuasca ceremony. But nonetheless, there's plenty of different ways to go about this release process, this release of a past relationship that you're attached to. So those are just some of the things that I have at my disposal, some of those tools. Hi, Luke. And then also, things that you guys can do as well if this is something that you're dealing with. So the big thing is not trying to bury those feelings. I've talked about this before, about, most people are afraid to do the shadow work. They're afraid to move through this stuff, afraid to experience and re-experience that deep pain and those emotions. And I think a lot of times we don't want to relive it because we're afraid that we're going to like go back to some place that we thought was awful, and that if we go back to that, then we're going to have to relive it all over again in the same amount of intensity and even duration, and that we might get stuck there. The truth is that the garbage coming up, it still does not feel good. But the good news is that just like when you're like throwing the garbage out, you don't sort through all the things that you're throwing away. You don't sort through, exactly what stuff that you're purging. You just take the garbage out, you throw it away, and you're done with it. So you don't necessarily have to understand everything that's coming up. You don't necessarily need to process at all. And you're going to feel some deep intensity of the pain, but it's not something that you're going to get stuck in, for, days, months, even hours, because if you truly allow the pain to come in, to feel that emotion fully, and then also give yourself permission to feel it, permission to feel the grief, that emotion is not going to last. It's the cat and mouse game that we play with our emotions, where we kind of start to uncover it, we brush up against it, but then we're like, nope, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to open I don't want to open Pandora's box. So just knowing that it's not going to stay. the way that's going to stay is the resistance. It's the resistance of the stuff that's like trying to come up. It's like God trying to tell you, like, I want to build you up stronger, but you've got to face this stuff, and I'm going to keep putting it in your face until you learn how to deal with it. So, you know, it's hard to move on. It is. It's hard to move on even if you want to move on, because you might not know how. You might be afraid to relive these emotions, or you might feel like you know, I don't know, maybe you feel like you're giving a part of yourself away or something. Could be. I mean, you know, you share an experience, you know, parts of your life with someone. But, you know, the best way to honor that experience and honor themselves is to, I think, you know, send gratitude for the experience, but then, you know, release some of these dark parts that don't serve you anymore. So don't be afraid to let this stuff go. You know, there's deep suffering going on. There's suffering going on, and it's just, you know, it's a time for an emotional purge. It's a great time for it, for me, specific to my situation. But for anyone, stuff from the fall 2010, and really there's never a bad time to do emotional purging. You're only going to get that much stronger, you know, the sooner that you take care of it. Don't be afraid to leave it behind and embrace new opportunities, because that's the beauty of it too. And emphasis on this point is that these deep traumas are getting stuck in the muscles, the muscle fascia. It's like literally that's the physical manifestation. It's a physical manifestation of what I feel in my back on that left side behind the heart. That stuff gets stuck, and when you're purging it, it's leaving your body. It's leaving your body physically. It's leaving your consciousness, your mental state. And there's so many different metaphors I could use. I mean, some people will say that it's like kind of like where a fire used to be, and now it's just like a burned place on like the Earth's surface, you know, where you walk over it and you're like, oh, there used to be a fire here, like there's some scar. I would say that it's more like there's like this, you know, it's like a volume thing, like a volume of like a container, you know, and it's full of like this darkness, these trapped emotions. So you release that shit, you let it out, but then something else needs to fill it. And so the thing that's going to fill it is going to be new experiences. It's not only going to be new experiences, but positive ones. You want to fill that stuff back up, fill that empty container back up with things that are the exact opposite of what you had stuck there, which is you want to have love, you want to have positivity, you want to have joy, you want to have compassion for yourself and others. Okay? So that's important. It's like purge, but then go out. It's like, great, you're free. You freed yourself of this emotion. Now it's great, because now there's feelings and experiences that you can have now in life that you honestly could not have otherwise had, because you had these emotional blocks before that are blocking you from experiencing the more beautiful things in life, which are those feelings of love, joy, compassion. So, you know, acceptance, you know, learning to accept that this stuff is there and that you've got to deal with it, letting the pain in, going through the grieving process. And you might think that you went through the grieving process already, because you go through, you know, this transition period of the hurt, and then you kind of just move on. But the thing is that you didn't move on fully, and there's still things affecting you that you need to finish the grieving process. It's almost like you hit the pause button, you put it on hold, and it's not like a conscious decision. We just try to move on from stuff as soon as we can. We don't want to feel shitty anymore. And I don't think that there's necessarily like that it's wrong to, you know, wait to complete the grieving process, because, you know, that anxiousness to want to get through it. Who knows, maybe it's not authentically done, even if you learn the tools to try to purge this stuff. And it's going to come up. It's divine timing. It's going to come up when it's meant to. So, forgiveness is huge. Forgiveness of not only the people involved in the situation, but especially forgiveness of yourself. The first purge that I actually ever had with this relationship was actually when I forgave her, but when I forgave myself for the role that I played in it, because I was actually emotionally blocked. I didn't even realize that I was carrying around a lot of guilt for how things happened, on how things ended, on how things occurred, and that, that unfortunately the son's mother, chose a path of substance abuse, and that I ended up as a single father. So just remembering to offer that love and compassion, but especially to yourself, because a lot of times we forget to do that. We think it's about other people, and we think maybe it's selfish to allow ourselves to give to ourselves. But that's where the saying comes from, that cliche metaphor. You got to fill your own cup before you can fill up anyone else's, or the airplane one. You got to put your oxygen mask on before you help anyone else. It's like with my son, this healing process for me, healing, this betrayal, this broken heart, is going to have monumental effects, I feel, for the relationship with my son, because removing that heart seal, removing those emotional blocks, is going to allow me to feel more expansiveness in my heart, and to let these new experiences in of love, joy, and compassion, and connection with him. So, you need to understand that the better that you treat yourself, the better you can treat others too. It's important. So, I will say too, if you're in a current relationship, if you've watched it this far in, just out of curiosity, if you don't feel that this is going on for you, or you're in a current relationship and your focus, your attention is more on that right now, don't be afraid to swallow your pride, swallow your ego, and play peacemaker. To play peacemaker, to say that you're sorry, to do the right thing, and coming from a place of love instead of resentment, instead of playing cat and mouse games, with people. God, that happens so much, unfortunately. And the thing is that, you might say, well, I don't want to get walked on. I don't want to keep forgiving and getting walked on. Well, that's where the self-love aspect comes in, where when you have enough self-awareness and love for yourself, and you might have to find this out through failed relationships, but what you're willing to accept and not accept. You're setting boundaries. So you're creating this space to allow your partner to say and do certain things within this space, where you won't pass judgment on them if they make a mistake. But if they step out of bounds on a boundary that that you have for yourself because you care and love for yourself, or they repeatedly step out of that boundary, that's when the relationship should end. But within that boundary that you create, offer the love, offer the compassion, instead of the resentment, the judgment, the play in the games. So that's what I got for you if you're currently in a relationship. Probably go deeper in that on another day. But so, relationships are a huge part of life. Like, there's always going to be relationships out there that come and go. It's life, the universe, it's always changing, and it's not a static situation. That's why, as much as you want to hold on to certain things, and certain things to never change, and this is why people a lot of times get hung up on certain parts of their life, like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, well, if I could just go back in time and coach would put me in, I would take state. He's living in the past, these glory days of his high school football days as a second, maybe in fucking third string quarterback. So, you got to understand that things change. Life changes. It's not static. You know that, but we know that. But do we understand that, like on a deeper level? Do we remind ourselves that of when something's getting pulled out of our life and we want to kick and scream over it? So, you know, I believe the ones that are meant to stay, and the ones that don't, they came into your life to show you something about yourself, to teach you lessons, and just give thanks, give gratitude, give honor to those people, even if it didn't go very well. You're never going to learn stuff about yourself if you play the victim, and if you're constantly pointing the finger at this person did this, this, and this, and that's why they're a horrible person, and that's why the relationship ended. Everything in a relationship is co-created. You need to take responsibility for what happened when you're going through it. Hello. So, others were lessons. So, these people that do leave too in your life, that it doesn't work out, when you want to offer gratitude, you want to even cherish that experience. It's easier done, it's best done, and it's done more authentically after the emotional purge, I want to say. I don't think, because in order to like give forgiveness and like come to this place of understanding and peace, I think it's important to experience the full range of emotion through the whole thing to get to that forgiveness stage, or whatever you want to call it. But how can you really do that if you haven't actually went in and done the shadow work and done the emotional purge? Once you do the emotional purging, that's the time when you can actually offer love and compassion even to somebody who hurt you or wronged you. That's how I believe that works. So my son's climbing on this tree behind me right now, so before my camera gets knocked off, monkey boy over here, I'm gonna run. But again, coaching, personal training is available. Send me an email, ericrosencoaches@gmail.com. Now that this crazy weekend is out of the way, should be back doing videos nightly. It seems like it's probably going to be about 6 days a week. I think that's where this is trending. What you guys can expect is a video 6 out of 7 days a week. I may not always take the same night off, but lately that's been Fridays. But just being honest and vulnerable, you guys know, as busy as you are, like it's I treat this, obviously take this seriously, showing up, and it is part of my work. But I also don't want to show up with mediocre content. I don't want to show up with, a half-assed video. There's preparation and a certain mental, emotional state that I want to be in when I show up for you guys, because I don't want to come from a place of just my ego and acting like I'm some expert and you need to just like listen to me from like an authoritative position. I want it to come from a deeper place of not only emotion in order to connect authentically with you guys, but also trying to channel as best as I can, as I'm learning to do that more and more from the universe, from spirit. So I appreciate you guys understanding, and I really appreciate you guys checking these videos out and subscribing, and just any kindness and support that you guys have offered. So you guys take care.